So how about we get to the smattering of firings? First up, Wilmer Cabrera, who technically not fired, just simply not renewed. Apparently skipped his post-game press conference after the game, after the loss, and he was never to be seen again. Phil, this is your backyard, so give us your piece.
Yeah, I mean, Wilmer, I think, and I said as much on Seriously Loco's Twitter account, but I would say like Wilmer deserves a lot of credit for the fact that he has righted the ship in many ways, and he brought some level of stability back to Locomotive's on-field product. So that is like very admirable and commendable given the amount of turmoil like that the club was in. It just, I mean, last season was by far the worst season in franchise history, probably up there with some of the worst seasons like in USL, like, and some of the stretches were like record bad. So getting that right is key. And I apologize in advance for the political analogy, but Wilmer always felt like Biden 2020, right? Where it was like, hey, we're going to bring in Wilmer, and it's not like he's not the guy, but we have to figure things out in the short term, and like we'll find a better guy eventually, but we'll like for now we're going to just use Wilmer. And then at the end of last season they were like, good news, like the guy, like Wilmer is the guy. And you're like, is Wilmer the guy? Like you kind of sold him as this like band-aid, and now he's the guy. And so I think like people just weren't, I don't think anyone in El Paso ever saw Wilmer as like the permanent fix or the long-term guy. This year, people did start to see, okay, maybe this is the club's plan. They've put in Ray Sari now as the director of football or technical director, or whatever you want to call it. But like, okay, Sari's the roster guy, Wilmer's the on-field guy. And now I just don't really understand what the club's plan is. Surprise, surprise. And they've been very opaque about like what's going on in, news that will shock absolutely no one. I think like what would have been the better approach to this is being upfront about the fact that, hey, yes, Wilmer is the bridge to something else. They even said in the announcement when they announced that they weren't renewing Wilmer, and that news about a new head coach will follow like in the coming days or something like that. And so like they teed it up as if they already had a solution. Now, I haven't heard anything. I don't think anybody's heard anything in terms of like what their idea is. My personal concern is that Ray Sari is going to be named. And I have like, but that is based on nothing. That's based on the idea that they said they have a plan and haven't said anything. And nobody has heard anything. So that's why I think that it might be someone internal, because why be upfront about, hey, we have a plan, if you don't. And it's equally likely that they just don't have a plan and that they're trying to say, hey, we have a plan and we're going to figure it out and we're building the plane as we fly it type deal. I think ultimately I will look back on, as a Locomotive fan, like I'll look back on the Wilmer Cabrera era as one that got Locomotive back in the area of the standings that they belong. And I don't feel any more confident about like sort of the long-term future of the product on the field than I did under like John Hutchinson or Brian Clarehout. Like it feels very tenuous, because a lot of these guys are Wilmer guys. And so now, like, what do you do going forward? Like, do you just blow it all up again? And then it's the complete Wild West, and they, we saw how that went, over the 3 years since Lowry was, or in between Lowry and Cabrera. So I don't know. I just think like John said it very well in his back four this week. So if you aren't subscribed or paying attention to John's Substack, in addition to the backheel sub, but he said it very well in that, like, you don't do this unless you're going to go for something big. And so my hope is that they have big ideas about where to go next. But hope is a very strange thing, and I don't necessarily trust them to take the big swing that I would prefer. So we'll see what they do.
Yeah, I mean, Wilmer is the ultimate stabilizer. You know what the end result is going to be when he is your manager. If the decision is we are trying to do something above the level that Wilmer gets you to, go different. Hire somebody young, hire someone with ideas, like show some ambition no matter what this is. I'm lower on Wilmer than like a fourth place finish and decent XG would probably beget. I just don't like watching his style of play, and that's on me. So yeah, El Paso, go do something that makes this team fun to watch again.
And I will just say the reality of the fourth place finish is that for anyone who watched the game, number one, holy moly, like one of the worst performances I've seen in the playoffs, like from anybody at any time. And maybe it was because Wilmer knew he was gone. Maybe the players knew he was gone. Like the last time that I saw an El Paso team fall that flat in a home playoff game was the year that Lowry announced he was going to Indy. So like, so there's that, but nobody was there. Like it was a home playoff game and no one came. Like it was like, I'm sure the numbers were okay. And like looking back through the archives, you can tell when El Paso is energized about a team. That place is loud. That place is full. Like Locomotive are not relevant in El Paso sports right now, which is like bad because the two things that people in El Paso like are UTEP football, not good. Dallas Cowboys football, not good. Right. So like this is a city that's crying out for something to cheer for, and they didn't go to the home playoff game. So this team like needs to do a lot of work to get relevant again in the conversation in El Paso.
How about one that absolutely shocked me? Hogan and Chambers are both gone from Colorado Springs. 1 year removed from making it to the championship final and winning the whole dang thing. They make the playoffs the next year. They go toe-to-toe with the number one team in the West, and it's enough for you to lose your job. There's a lot of thoughts, and yet somehow I'm speechless on the matter. Someone tell me how I should feel.
So less than 1 year ago, this team was on the precipice of winning a title, and the people who did that are gone now. And I think what really confuses me is what was the expectation for Chambers and Hogan when you don't give them the money to keep Ronaldo Damas, Speedy Williams, Tyreek McGee, Jairo Henriquez. Like the core of the front end of that team was completely gone. They had a lot of defensive injuries throughout the year. Could James Chambers have done a better job on the sideline and in his in-game tactics? Of course. Does Hogan shoulder some of the responsibility for failing to replace some of that talent? Yes, also. Again, they won a title in 2024. You made the playoffs this year, and you looked fine in that playoff match against Tulsa. To me, that is maybe we're going to run it back and see what happens midway through next season. I just don't get this decision. There was nothing that said the locker room was lost. You still saw the consistent philosophy that defined this team at their best. Really confusing decision.
In general, I am just befuddled because when you look at the team they ran back after title contender, I don't have it in front of me right now, but none of us were very high on this Colorado Springs roster. Like coming into the season, they did not supplement the talent that they lost. Some of their better players they had were from loans, and they did not regain those loans. They lost key players. And maybe that falls on Hogan being the director of football or GM. I really don't remember the exact verbiage, but it's all the same. I don't remember, maybe that's on him. But how can you say that's Chambers, right? Unless they are truly a two-for deal where they both just come in together and they had to go out together as well. That's really the only thing that makes sense to me. And, kind of what you said, John, about Wilmer and what we have said about Oakland with them getting rid of Phil Auber, a lot of these managerial decisions, you don't make one unless you feel like you have something in the bag. And honestly, when I'm looking at Chambers, the only people I could think that you are realistically saying, yes, this is a step up is Ryan Martin. And that's, unless something insane happens, that's not happening. So you're looking at, are they Phil Auber truthers where they saw he was open and said, no, he's the guy? They have about 4 months of proof versus 5 years in a championship. This just feels like a massive risk where one did not have to be taken at all.
Colorado Springs are also like a Peñaranda save and a Matt Mahoney header over the bar from still being in the playoffs. Like, I mean, this was fine margins, as we saw, and we'll talk about across this first round, but like extremely fine margins in a single elimination format. And what happens in a world in which they advance, right? Like, are they still getting the sack? Because have fun explaining that, right, to the fans. So the fact that we're having this conversation now after, one season removed from a trophy and still making the playoffs in a, albeit like challenging year after losing some of your best players. I don't know. It does strike me as weird. And I think there are clear differences between what was going on in Colorado Springs and what was going on in like the other places where people decided to make managerial changes. And this one just sticks out like a sore thumb, unfortunately.
And any final thoughts on this one? Well, before we go over to what was the best USL playoff week ever, Westchester just fired literally everybody, like literally everyone. And it was not a good season, but I think a lot of us expected the coaching staff to get another year to figure it out because it was honestly so disastrous that you could just start over fresh and just do the opposite thing with the roster. But instead they decided to go fresh with absolutely everything.
Yeah, it was a surprise to me as well. He dealt with a lot of injuries this season, especially in the defense. I think I counted up and there was like 9 or 10 different center back pairings all season, which is just kind of absurd. You can't establish a good defense like that. Because there always seem to be like 3 of the 4 or 5 center backs they have were injured in a rotating basis. Seeing that whole thing happen, I guess they're looking for a fresh start. John and I both spoke to Mitch, the owner of at Westchester, and it seems like they're looking for a coach with more ties to the New York City area and looking to get faster and younger. I guess that means a lot of those high-profile veterans that they signed are probably on the way out. And I think we may hear an announcement very sooner rather than later, possibly this week, as far as finding a new coach, new sporting director, new assistant, new everything.
Yeah, no, hearing the same thing that they, from what I understand, like already have who the next coach is going to be. I think it is harsh on Carton. Being an expansion team is hard. Like there's no two ways about it. And even if you are bringing in veteran players, those are guys who have learned separate systems that you have to mesh together. It's a difficult challenge, and they had the bad luck with injuries. You can only point to the penalty issue they had early in the season. It's just downright bad luck to a certain extent. I think if you gave Carton a second year, this team would have improved. At the same time, if the people behind Westchester feel like we have a clarity of vision of where we want this project to go and Carton can't facilitate that, it makes sense. Like when you're this early into being a club and you start to form that identity, I understand trying to work towards that specific idea rather than stick to something that isn't going to be the move.
Yeah, and I think this year it showed us that expansion teams can be successful. But I think like it is the exception that we have 2 expansion teams still in our playoffs.
Yeah, as the Rhode Island fans hop into the chat of is being expansion team hard.
Yeah, expansion hard. Yeah, Naples, Portland. You can talk that too.
Well, like with it being election day as well, New York decided it was time for a change.
That's right, buddy.
Well, we're moving headquarters out of New York City. We're talking to our finance people now.
One thing you mentioned being an expansion team is hard. I mean, 5 of the 14 teams in League One were expansion teams, right? Or is it 6? Was it 5? Yeah. 2 of them made the playoffs. One of them is already in League Two. One of them finished last, and the other one just missed the playoffs. Last year, we had Spokane make the playoffs, and if I remember correctly, they were the first expansion team to make the playoffs since the first ever season of the league.
And they barely made the playoffs too.
They barely made
kind of
it.
Fell backwards into the playoffs and then went on a run.
That's the thing. It's like it's incredibly difficult. It's incredibly difficult. I'm kind of just thinking back I feel like Moneyball gets mentioned on this show a lot, but the whole it's not that hard to be an expansion team. Tell them Wash. It's extremely hard, right? It just feels like maybe they pulled the trigger on the gun just a little too soon. But I don't know. Maybe they really feel like they got somebody going for them. But also, if that person was not Nate Miller, I don't know. It better be a dang good hire. Do we talk Nate Miller on here, by the way?
No, and we absolutely should. Oh, and we'll let Alex get this, but I just want to say, I think Nate Miller might end up being the best coaching hire of the offseason in American soccer. Like that guy could do an MLS job and he would fit the bill. And the fact that Boise now has a manager that led a USL championship team successfully and proved himself to be an utterly brilliant tactician. He's led an expansion effort in League One and identified guys in Lansing, that have gone on to have long playing careers across the USL. Yeah, he's got the eye for talent. He's got the local ties. Everything you want out of your leader in year one, Nate Miller has it.
That Lansing roster, looking back at it, that was pretty stacked.
Crazy, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Boise, if they're going to fill those stands like Portland, they may as well let's go all in. It's a statement.
Do we have? Look at that Lansing scarf,
vintage.
Not just that. It is the inaugural home game for Greenville Triumph.
Wow.
Lansing Ignite.
That's unreal.
Their first and last match against Greenville.
Yeah, that I forgot that Lansing exists, and every now and then I look up there. I'm like, oh yeah, that was cool. So, okay. Any final thoughts before we get to the playoffs? Alex, did you get to monologue about Nate Miller?
Yeah, I just did. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. I was too busy trying to find the scarf. I got to be honest with you. My brain was on a mission.